Man, I ain't gonna lie. I've been holding a lot of lately. Man, I just had a 3.5 hour cry. I just let it all out.
Breaking news in the Sean Diddy Combs case. He's back in federal court today in Manhattan, this time trying to secure bail.
A lot of people allowed it to go on, said nothing, didn't intervene, maybe benefited from it, profited from it. All of these individuals and entities, in my view, have exposure here.
Pardon me?
That was before the
Don't get brazen with me.
The music mogul was denied bail yesterday after his arrest on sex trafficking and other charges.
I'm not going to talk about anything that I haven't said in court or in the papers. These are all great questions, but I'm just not going to.
We've got some shocking news shaking up the entertainment world. Sean Diddy Combs, yes, the music mogul himself, has found himself in the headlines again. What exactly happened in that courtroom? Why did the judge deny his bail? And let's just say there's a lot more happening behind the scenes that's about to come out. Stick around, because we've got all the juicy details coming your way. The hero everyone defended, the court decided Diddy couldn't be free while waiting for his trial, so he's still in jail. This is probably a huge shock to him. He's very anxious because he knows if he's locked up for a long time it could wreck his good name and his job. Faster has the tide turned, and even more astounding, those who propped him up some months back, those who applauding silently shook his hand on occasion, sought icon, are stiffly now withdrawing. Curtains have been suddenly yanked open. Their contrived illusion stands as exposed in Hollywood. Loyalty is not eternal. A fall in this fragile state can be as brutal as it is sudden. From adulation and authority, the crumbling of support must be in the same class as the long sentence beyond its possibility. While Diddy waits to hear the verdict on a third bail application he filed with the appeals court, he was seen back again last Thursday in court trying to follow up on what is happening with his case with a sex trafficking trial very close. His attorneys do not spend a lot of time inside the sessions. According to sources, they are attempting to block one major line of evidence against him, and they have also discussed the date for the trial and some of the evidence they dug up from his mansion. Among other things, the evidence is so heavy against the prosecutors that it adds even more spice to the sauce. Legal authorities have stated that state have never been higher, because the defense is employing every means imaginable in an attempt to limit what can be displayed in court. Each new detail serves to add fuel to an already overheated case. It is no longer just about one or two accusations. With the date approaching for the trial, the courtroom seemed to be ticking clocks, and any decision or action could change everything in Diddy's future. Making enemies in the courtroom, it seems Diddy's situation is worse than he thought. He's stuck in jail much longer than he imagined. Let me tell you, Diddy messed up badly by making the judge angry. He might be in that terrible jail for a very long time. On Friday, Judge William J. Nardini declined Diddy's petition for immediate release while a 3-judge panel examined his plea for bail on September 30th. Diddy's lawyers had appealed against the ruling of 2 judges against his release before the Second Circuit Court of Appeals for the ones who are living under rocks. Diddy had been in a federal jail in Brooklyn after his arrest on September 16th. The rapper was charged after being alleged to have leveraged his fame and influence to lure women into drugged-up, over-the-top sexual encounters with male sex workers and what were called freak-offs. It's like everything in the troubles of Diddy's court meshed, and it turns out judges do not take well to anyone's implications of disrespect or manipulation. Amid all this, insiders report that his legal team's attempts to challenge the orders and to push for release may have grated on the court. Now every move that team makes is scrutinized by the judges, and the repeated denial for bail sends out such a clear message, one that tells that the court is not buying his arguments and charges as serious as these. You could never commit a bigger blunder than making enemies of the people that will one day determine your fate. Things only get messier for Diddy as prosecution is allegedly upping the ante, while using his courtroom fumbles as more ammunition to bolster their case. Now every refusal of his bail is seen as another little victory on the premise of prosecution establishing that he is both a risk and a menace to the community. Legal pundits predict that his antagonism with the bench might be used against him in the trial and make him lose face with the jury. If Diddy thought he was outsmarting with charm, he better learn an arduous lesson that this isn't the egocentric territory, this is a battleground, and right now he indeed is losing badly. The weight of the accusations. Diddy says he's innocent of some very serious crimes. He's been accused of being involved in a criminal group that exploits people, making secret agreements to do illegal things and forcing women into sex work. The charges say that for many years he and his friends hurt and used women and threatened them with things like sharing their secrets, hurting them, or even kidnapping them to keep them from talking. And now once again back to the courtroom drama. A judge last month at a bail hearing threw out Diddy's offer of $50 million bail that would have let him stay under house arrest at his mansion in Florida with GPS monitoring and restrictive visitation rights. But judging by the turn of events, time spent in jail for Diddy is becoming more extended and harsher than imagined. While he is doing all possible to get out of it, his bail has already been denied twice, making things really look bad for him. They do not just weigh upon the accused, they weigh upon and crush even the prosecutors. So they say legal analysts for this area of allegations is just so vast that it seems unending against Diddy. These charges are not random, isolated Events they leaped years with many alleged victims. It is a scenario that looks to include systematic exploitation, then threats like blackmail, violence, and even kidnapping are included, weighing these allegations much heavier than a normal criminal case. Should the prosecution prove an organized, repeated pattern of abuse, it could corner Diddy with little opportunity of a fight back. They've even brought in new proof to add weight to what the prosecution already has against him. One of the sources added the latest accounts only seem to keep piling on weight onto Diddy's defense team. They also alleged that investigators discovered important materials, including digital evidence and testimonies connecting him to the accusations and searches within his properties. Such evidence, if it can be proven, can serve to strengthen the prosecution's case and leave him squirming. Every move he makes is under public scrutiny, with the clamor against him getting even louder. He faces unprecedented pressures. He may not be condemned by this court of public opinion, but opinions presently weighed in that direction would only add fuel to an already intense legal conflict to question questionable defense. And if that wasn't bad enough, they say he's now targeting the judge. But there's more. Diddy's legal team isn't only saying he didn't do it, they're also trying to say he's not a risk to people outside of jail. But Judge Andrew L. Carter Jr., who was on the case at first, said the prosecutors showed strong proof that Diddy was actually a danger to others. Now the judge has ruled that no condition or set of conditions can stop Diddy from obstructing the investigation or threatening witnesses. Thus his lawyers argued in their appeal that the judge had adopted the hyperbolic reasoning of the government and kept Diddy in jail for purely speculative purposes. The lawyers wrote, indeed, hardly a risk of flight. He is a 54-year-old father of 7, a U.S. citizen, an extraordinarily successful artist, businessman and philanthropist, and one of the most recognizable people on earth. The attorneys representing Diddy have yet to beg the new trial judge Arun Subramanian for bail reconsideration, but a hearing held last Thursday with Diddy seated next to his attorney while clad in beige jail coveralls saw Subramanian dropping phrases that might open the door to discussion on it, even keeping in mind the denial of the bail. All that Diddy needs now is to have his attorneys back into the good graces of the court's. Analysts in the law field say that a targeted approach towards the judge or a combative stance could put them in a situation even worse than it is now, especially in such a high-profile case. Judica will always take a dim view of tactics that seem to question their impartiality, meaning that this will only secure the perception further, as that defense is more just altogether than really substantive. To turn this around, his lawyers are going to have to change tactics and methods and legal arguments grounded in evidence rather than rhetoric while dealing with the serious issues raised concerning witness SAF and obstruction. Indeed, the case grows more complicated with every passing day because of the public perception surrounding it. Diddy is continuously risking allegations that he wants to run away and escape the reckoning with every bail hearing and every legal maneuver by his defense team. Public opinion might not be enough to condemn guilt. It does, however, shape the courtroom environment and the approach each party takes toward the case. If Diddy's attorneys fail in rebutting the obstruction claims against him presenting by the prosecution side or offer a credible scheme for his submission within jail, all hopes for a bail reconsideration would vanquish. The same way it came out Diddy's life in MDC. The judge had already picked May 5th for the trial. Then he quickly asked Diddy's lawyers how things were going for him at the Metropolitan Detention Center, MDC. This jail is known for being a rough and badly managed place. Mark Agnifilo, one of the lawyers who had tried to get Diddy moved to a different jail in New Jersey, answered the judge's question when they were done in court. Another lawyer who works for Diddy, Anthony, talked to reporters outside. Diddy may say his lawyers have cool things between them, but this quietness does not suit the words we get from sources inside the Metropolitan Detention Center. MDC harsh and rough treatment, along with mismanagement, has earned MDC a reputation as one of the most removals in the country. Frequent power cuts, dangerous temperature fluctuations, and overcrowded living spaces have turned every day of life into a continuous struggle for these souls. The inmates in the MDC, for one, who lived in a world of riches and privileges. The retribution of MDC must feel like that mighty crash from the mountaintops. Even the simplest of needs, such as regular provision of fresh potable water or sanitation products, are said to be lacking in such an environment. Besides this discomfort being felt in the body, Diddy's period at the MDC comes with a psychological burden as well, because inmates who have high profiles like him usually are kept under close surveillance and are allowed to interact very little with others, all for their own safety. This may keep him from problems with the rest of the prisoners, but it increases the mental suffering of being isolated from the rest of the world. And in all truth, this kind of comparison will be so staggering. The reality with one surrounded by friends in some lavish event or another and full of attention from everyone, and the actual lonely and confined space of MDC. And though his lawyers are trying to say things are not so, it is very clear that the jail conditions are in fact not at all fine for someone whom these newer realities are unfamiliar with. A growing legal battle. A few days ago, Diddy's lawyer Alexandra Shapiro asked the court to let him go free before the trial. She said this case is very strange and serious, but that shouldn't stop him from getting out of jail or defending himself, while Free Shapiro emphasized that Diddy was locked up right after the charges, even though he's been a famous person his whole life, and all his actions are well known. There's basically zero chance he would run away. He's 54 years old, a dad to 7 kids, and a celebrity. People have different opinions about Sean Combs' bail situation, mainly because of the buzzing news surrounding his arrest, even after agreeing to comply with string conditions as a guarantee that he would not flee or pose any sort of risk. He hasn't been freed till now. Life's been hard for him by now. But you would be surprised to learn that this is just the beginning of his woes. New allegations emerging against him would create a far from straightforward kind of situation, increasing the intricacy of the novel legal battle. Besides the prosecution's aggressive stance is that prosecution says Diddy's influence, wealth, and power connections make him unique in the case where bail cannot be given lightly. They say it also gives him the means to tamper, destroy, or intimidate witnesses. This argument strongly resonated with the court, which denied settling bail on several occasions despite the defense trying to get Diddy to the itinerary of a non-flight risk. It will become imperative for his legal team, especially in the endeavor to get pre-trial freedom, to dismantle this heavily fortified narrative. Coinciding with the events of the case is the unusual media frenzy, which makes for an even more complicated context for these proceedings. Each new hearing or filing then turns into headline news, escalating speculation and populating the public debate. That sort of scrutiny not only jeopardizes Diddy's images, but also affects the outcome of the trials by molding how he is perceived by the court and jury. High-profile cases often come with such problems that are outside of the evidence, and Diddy's team is aware of winning public trust being as important as is establishing a strong legal defense. With newer accusations emerging day by day, the battle is only getting more intense, and the road ahead does not look straight for the ailed musical mogul. Disturbing new allegations. Not long ago, another person sued him with a very serious claim. This person says he gave her drugs and sexually assaulted her back in 2000, when she was only 13 years old. In this lawsuit filed in New York, the person says she was brought to a party after the MTV Video Music Awards. She says Diddy and another famous guy attacked her while a famous woman watched. The lawyers representing this person say they plan to file more than 120 lawsuits against Diddy, and these 5 new ones are just the beginning. Such a situation is unfolding rapidly, and questions about how serious those allegations are at the moment. Things have gotten crazy, with fans starting to think the rumors are true that Justin and Usher were just kids being exploited by Diddy. Social media is abuzz with reactions asking what exactly a 13-year-old is doing at such a party, and why no one spoke. The lawsuit states that after consuming a drink, the victim began to feel dizzy and was subsequently assaulted by Combs and others. Currently living in Alabama, the plaintiff alleges that the incident has led to lifelong trauma and depression on their part. Combs' legal team has firmly denied all accusations, stating Mr. Combs has never sexually assaulted anyone and expressed confidence that the truth will come out in court this time. It appears that Diddy has finally realized that he cannot talk his way out of this. The idea of spending years or possibly decades in prison must be weighing heavily on him, and probably added to him breaking down in court. For someone who has lived all his life like royalty, the thought of being locked up in one of the most notorious prisons in the country is downright terrifying. All the worries regarding Diddy life in jail have really built up. For the high-profile inmates, all of them go through an entirely different kind of psychological test when they come into the prison system. True, he has lived an extravagantly comfortable life, but then that ensures that he has lived all these years waiting under a public microscope. Everything he does is either scrutinized, praised, or criticized, so he has been there with his entourage, the crowd of devout fans, and an enormous wealth to buffer any backlash. Now that is all gone. Picture being all by himself. That isn't the only thing. No, it is more than physical isolation. That is really being stripped of everything that built him up outside those cold prison walls. Simply imagining someone sitting in a stark cell with his thoughts makes it look as though the walls are closing in on him. No wonder authorities keep a very close watch on him 24/7, as they worried he might end up harming himself. MDC's nightmarish conditions. It's really bad for Diddy at the Metropolitan Detention Center. MDC people say it's one of the worst jails in the whole country. It's truly awful. Their keeping clean is almost impossible. They often can't wash themselves properly for days. The cells are freezing when it's cold outside and boiling hot when it's warm, and sometimes the electricity goes out, leaving the whole place in the dark for days. Try to imagine being in a freezing cell huddled under a thin blanket while all around is only cold concrete and steel. It is a pure nightmare. To make matters worse, MDC is known for piling up to a maximum density of inmates beyond its capacity. There will be no privacy, not a breath of air, always on alert. For someone like Diddy, who is used to the expanse of his mansions, this could be an absolute claustrophobia. He is presently in solitary confinement in AAL Housing Unit SHU. It is essentially the part of the jail for those with high risks. Not that this part is just any section of the jail. Most dangerous people are taken care of here by the very nature of its brutal reality for the inmates housed in it, as well as the isolation effects. It is psychologically extremely grueling. He is locked up in a 6GX9T cell for pretty much 23 hours every day and has an eerily oppressive surrounding which is almost as depressing as the environment. Diddy isn't allowed contact with anybody other than the thin mattress and steel toilet sink combo. From his loud and bustling world, He finds himself drifting into a space devoid of comforts known all his life, and this could feel very claustrophobic and suffocating. Experts say intense anxiety, depression, and even paranoia are typically evoked from such a degree of solitary confinement. All of this is intensified for such a person as Diddy, who has spent almost his entire life in the constant presence of energy people and praise. High-profile inmates usually get into a very dangerous condition when they are sent to an infamous detention place. For people like Diddy, everything they do is under the eye of not only his guards, but even the other inmates who would consider his presence an opportunity or a competition. The fear of violence, retaliation, or harassment lingers constantly, even in the confines of the special housing unit. The combination of the high security nature of this environment, as well as the jail's overcrowding and dysfunction, makes an unending stream of stress that would break even the strongest individuals. For Diddy, who is great at managing his will, this may be all the more cruel. Absolute powerlessness without privacy. Life in jail. This guy used to live in a super fancy house worth $48 million. Now he's stuck in a tiny cell that's 6 feet by 9 feet, smaller than some closets. He spends almost all day there with only a toilet and sink together, a small desk, and a very thin mattress. All he has is one blanket, one set of clothes, and a few things he bought from the jail store. It's a huge difference from the rich life he used to have. This is just another reminder for Diddy of how far he has fallen from the life of unimaginable wealth. 1 hour outside their cell each day is how it goes for them, and that is to a very small and confined yard. No interaction whatsoever with other inmates, completely severed from all other aspects of the outside world except for the guards watching over them. A user said Puffy, trying to get his last glimpse of sunlight. This shows you that freedom is priceless for a man like Diddy, once flying in private jets all over the earth and walking down glittering red carpets with flustering flashes. The weight of losing his freedom is unbearable. That final ray of sunlight is by far more than just a fleeting glimpse outside, but a complete uncompromise to that life once built of luxury, influence, and power. Confinement is an absence of choice. Every moment is determined right down to when and what he eats and sleeps, with no exceptions. Freedom, which until this point was taken for granted, is now the one thing he can't buy back. However many dollars and dates he racked up besides isolation, Diddy is now also facing relentless scrutiny from the outside world. Every step he takes becomes the headline of the newspapers and social media. Even when behind bars, there is no privacy, no reprieve, and there is no hiding place. He is closely watched by his fans, critics, and the media, who analyze everything from his looks to his moods, turning what could be quiet personal struggles into a public spectacle. For Diddy, confinement is more than just the physical barring of doors. The mental sections of his being are also under lockdown. It now merges with an emotional and psychological confinement, a reality he is forced to face in a world that watches him fall, freedom slipping away. In case he is found guilty, Diddy could be spending the rest of his days behind bars. It is a chilling thought, and at the moment things look very bleak for him. If a guilty verdict comes down, it wouldn't just mean jail time, it would mean the collapse of everything Diddy spent decades building. His empire, once a symbol of success and power, would be reduced to ruins as his legacy becomes overshadowed by scandal. From his music empire to business ventures and cultural influence, everything could be wiped out as he faces the harsh reality of life behind bars. The financial fallout alone would be staggering, with lawsuits, legal fees, and abandoned business deals piling up, leaving little behind of the life he once ruled. Beyond his career, the damage to his personal life would be equally devastating. His family, especially his 7 children, would have to navigate the aftermath of his fall from grace. The emotional toll of losing their father to a prison sentence, combined with public scrutiny, would be immeasurable. For Diddy, knowing the consequences extend far beyond himself would likely weigh on him just as much as the thought of spending his life in confinement. Freedom slipping away doesn't just mean losing physical liberty, it means watching the life he knew crumble piece by piece with no way